Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
All right, everybody, welcome back to First Responder Financial Freedom with me, Tyler Thrush, Mike Webb. Aaron is working on some rehab, so he will not be here this week. And then our guest is Dan Zitofsky. Dan is a former NYPD police officer. He is a Navy vet, and he is a wealth of real estate experience. I know Mike and I are both excited to have him on the show for personal reasons too, because we have a lot of questions as well. So with that, Dan, I just want to say thank you for hopping on the show. And if you can, just give us a real quick background about who you are, where you come from, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. I appreciate once again, Mike and Tyler, I appreciate you guys having me on, especially first responders. Very, very close to my heart. Obviously, Navy vet and NYPD, first responder in 9/11. So anything I could do to help first responders or veterans is really more than business, close to my heart. So thanks for having me on. But I'm at this now for, can't believe what I'm saying, at 33, coming on 34 years. I still feel like I'm just starting out, one of the new guys in the industry. But I've been doing this since I'm out of high school. Essentially, I'm not even 19 years old. I bought my first condo. And with that, I wound up going off to the Navy. I was playing football. Got hurt, wound up going off to the Navy to be a hospital corpsman in the Navy, so a medic in the Navy, working with the Marines for a few years. And I had that rental. I always tell those people the funny stories about the rental property. I was netting $600 a month in cash flow, and I was making $248 every 2 weeks in the Navy. You know, so at that point, I really got hooked on real estate, being in the Navy. I came out, and I'm going to make these long. I can make this story go very long, but I'm going to shorten it up because I want to get to some details so I can help people. Because I always believe it's not about me, it's about what I could do for other people. Like, I don't like to brag on myself, but I came out, and while I was in the Navy, I started having all these checks because I wasn't 21 years old. I couldn't go out drinking like a lot of the guys and girls would do. So they would go out drinking, and I learned really quick what private lending was. They needed money. I had all this money coming in at the time because I couldn't spend it on anything under 21 years old. I started lending them out money. But I came out of the Navy, and I got really active. I used to work in the mortgage business as an assistant while I was in high school playing football. I got back in the mortgage business. I started finding distressed real estate, and I got into, starting to fix and flip some properties. And over time, then I wanted benefits. So I became a police officer. In 1996, I became a police officer, worked until 2001. Obviously, we know what happened. The world tragedy, 9/11 happened. I was stuck and I responded. I was in the second building. I was there for 18 days straight working nonstop. And at that point, I always said I was going to be a police officer until I didn't have to anymore. I had a wife and 2 kids, and I just wanted the benefits. So after 6 years and 9/11 happened, I decided I needed to get out. My business, I was fixing and flipping at that point anywhere from 30 to 50 properties a year already. So I was making about $48,000 top pay as a police officer. I was making multiple 7 figures flipping properties. So you figure it out at that point. So I was netting about 50 to 80,000 minimum per property. Otherwise, I would wholesale it. I wouldn't flip it. But a lot of times I was over 6 figures flips on the property. So, I fix and flipping. So I was making multiple 7 figures a year to the point where I almost lost my wife, almost lost my kids because I was never around. I was working 100 plus hours a week. I was very transactional, right? And I was doing it to feed my ego. And in my book, I got my book here, right? Passive to Prosperous. In the book, I talk a lot about my why and my vision, right? A lot of it was I grew up, I'm not a rags to riches story, but I grew up, it was a tough childhood. It wasn't the easiest childhood in the world. We didn't have money, a lot of money. I had to fend for myself a lot growing up. If I wanted extras, I had to do it. I had to pave my way to go out, all that kind of stuff. Nothing was given to me. So I always swore when I got older, I was going to make a lot of money and be happy. And to me, I was feeding my ego. So I drove some of the nicest cars you could imagine. I was one of those guys driving nicest cars, boats, watch collection. I still have it. And I don't put it out there because I believe that really could ruin somebody, right? You try to have the comparison syndrome. So I was doing it, just making millions of dollars a year to buy expensive things to kind of show off, to feed my ego. And I remember we had a blown out fight, my wife and I, and she was just like, you're not the father you want to be. You're not the husband you want to be. All you're doing is, and I was pissed. And I was like, you know what I'm buying you cars. I'm buying you jewelry, whatever you want. She basically broke down and she said, all we ever wanted was you here. So at that point, That was about 13 years ago. At that point, I had to really make a change. And I'm like, well, I know how to fix and flip houses. I know how to make a lot of money. Rental properties making $600, $700, $800 a month is not as sexy as making $80,000, right? But when you start doing it a lot of times, it gets pretty damn sexy, right? And then from rental properties, my private lenders that were lending me money to buy those, they started wanting me to help them build rental properties, right, in emerging markets. So I started selling to them, and it became very transactional again. And I said, wait, this isn't working, because now I'm just fixing a property, selling rental properties to people who used to lend me private money so I could build their portfolio. It's not helping me at all. I'm still transactional. So then I started working with my private lenders or my investors. These are like your dentist, your physical therapist, your chiropractors, your business owners. And I started going to them and I said, listen, if I'm going to sell your property for $100,000 and I'm only taking cash, I don't do third-party mortgages. You can't get a mortgage with me because I'm not going to deal with banks. If I'm selling your property for $100,000 and you have $100,000, you can only buy one property, right? But now if I sell your property for $100,000 and it's 30% down, you can now buy 3 properties. So I started working with people, and I became, I can't even say, because I'm not a licensed wealth advisor, I became almost their wealth advisor. And now what I do is I raise capital. I started buying a ton of distressed debt from the banks, either non-performing mortgages, REOs, tax liens. I buy direct from wholesalers. I buy direct from sellers. And I look to turn every property into some kind of passive income, like an ATM card. And that's what I teach about. So I take those properties, fully rehab them, high end, rent them out, get them managed, professionally managed. Then I sell them to my group of investors that want to build their own portfolio. And I help them buy 3, 4, 5, 10 properties instead of just 1 or 2. And with doing so, I help them build their net worth, and I help build passive income for myself. And when you do that passive income, it's the only way in this world. I don't care what business you do in real estate. You could be in multifamilies, you could be in subject to, you could be in rentals, you could be in flips, you can be in any business. The only way in this business you truly live passively is to become the bank. Now, I also do private lending, right? Hard money lending. The problem with that is, when they pay you off in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, you're out of a deal. Here, I get all my money back to my private lenders love me because I paid them all their money back in 12 months, 18 months or less. And I stay in a deal for 30 years, 30 years getting paid without a dollar in a deal. Now I could shut my laptop, my phone off. I could be on the beach or my boat all summer and I get paid no matter what. And I don't even collect payments. It goes to my servicing company. So when you start doing that, 4, 5, 6, 800, 1,200, 2,000, doesn't seem like a lot, but do it a couple hundred times and see how much it adds up. So now I completely destroyed what I made flipping houses. I have all my time to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. And now I get to, travel nationwide. In fact, internationally, I get to even do stuff international in Roatan, but I speak internationally now. I speak probably 30, 40 times a year. Most of them live events. I get to speak at like family office types of events, syndication, IRA companies. I get to speak at pension offices, retirees. I even speak now about non-real estate. I speak about your vision, your mindset, your why, positive thinking, sales training. I speak for corporate offices. So it allows me to do everything I want to do now because of passive wealth. So I'm so strong on passive wealth. I say no so many times to deals that could make me a lot of money potentially. But if they don't fit my vision, I don't do them. I don't care how much you make. So it allows me to, I've created my inner circle workshops. I get to teach a couple times a year for my own events. I get to literally pick out who comes to my events. I interview them before they come. I keep it small and we do business together. I find when I do my events and I teach what I do, those are the people I want to do business with. I want to fund their deals. I want them to fund my deals. I want to do deals together. So I truly get to live what I want to do. I don't ever chase money. But you have to work, and I teach this all the time. You got to work from your vision backwards. You got to come backwards, right? What is your vision? What do you want? What does your best day look like? Okay, then from there, how much money do you need to do that? Then from there, what are your skill sets? Then from there, how much money do you have? Do you know how to raise money? So we teach people how to raise private money. We teach people how to create self-finance notes. We teach people how to find emerging markets, how to build a team in those markets, how to do your rehabs the right way, from soup to nuts. And the people that do it, they start seeing success pretty damn quick. So that's my life. That's what I do.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's and now I get to invest. Like, a big thing for me is buying a ton of land in Roatan, getting it full approved, and then help people build their investments in Roatan. So I love loving on people. I love teaching people. I love helping people, but you could only do that if you truly help yourself. And my business is truly a business where I'm not based on the economy. I'm not based on the government. In fact, the interest rates being up today, where we are now, we're in 2024, the end of April 2000, because when people watch this, it could be different. The end of April 2024, interest rates are up. That's the best thing for my business. Interest rates are low. People were paying me off. But we actually now we have options with that where we don't have to get paid off. We can actually stay in a deal. So, and you just set your business up the way you want it. So basically what it comes down to is I'm just very non-transactional now. Try not to be transactional. I try to do everything where I could stay in a deal for 30 years.
So Dan, you've gone pretty much all the way through the life cycle of an investor, right? Mm-hmm. And Tyler and I often joke about the bank is the top of the food chain. And that's why we're trying to kind of basically migrate, because we both started similar path, wholesale, flip, traditional rentals, and then moved into owner finance and creative financing, and now lending. So it's kind of like just that natural migration to the other end of the spectrum, if you will. But I think doing all of those things you talked about, they help you become a better passive investor, in my opinion, just because you've learned what it's like to be the operator. You said you were doing 40 to 50 flips while you still were NYPD.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So
I presume that was in the New York market, or were you remotely flipping?
New Jersey at the time. Actually, believe it or not, I actually did Arizona and Vegas too. I was in Maricopa County in Arizona. I was one of the first guys out in Arizona when it was tumbleweed. Yeah. In the 90s, late 90s, I was in Arizona. It was crazy. We do very well there. But yeah, I've done every spectrum of real estate investing from, like you said, I didn't wholesale too much. I only looked to wholesale stuff that didn't fit my niche when I was flipping, right? So I did wholesaling, fix and flipping, rentals. I bought and sold hotels, land deals. I built to rent. I built to sell. Owned shopping centers. I've been an operator of a self-storage facility. So yeah, I've gone through all spectrums, but to me, for me, like I laugh now when everybody's in multifamily, like they jumped in multifamilies. In 2019, I sold my last 800 doors of multifamilies, and people are like, "Oh, you crazy?" And I used to speak and teach multifamilies, and I won't speak for those events anymore just because I don't believe in them right now. And not that they can hear me next year, and maybe next year I'm back in multifamilies potentially. But when multifamilies, all I was doing was working for my investors. It wasn't passive at all. It's anything but passive. So I felt like multifamily people are out there pounding their chest, talking about how much they have under management, how many doors they own, but how much money, it's like Mr. Wonderful in the Shark Tank, how much money are you bringing to the bank? So I had one of my students, we were just at an event where it's 95% multifamily investors. And he turns to me, he says, all these meetings we're having, these people are talking about they have $1 billion under management and they're making no money. And I'm like, because that's what it is right now, because they don't understand the pure economics of how multifamilies work. So really, to me, it came down to what is my vision? What do I want? Why am I if I ask you why you're in this business, it's like, what do you want? And most people are going to tell you, I want freedom. Well, how is that freedom? There's no freedom in multifamilies. There's none at all. You're working for your investors. I mean, when I'm on a 3-hour Monday morning management call, and I'm speaking to my partners and I'm doing turnovers and CapEx and I'm dealing with bank, there's no freedom. Like now there's pure freedom. I don't do anything. I don't deal with tenants. I don't deal with toilets. I don't deal with trash. I don't deal with termites. I don't even collect the payment from you. Payment goes to my servicing company. They ACH my account. And if it doesn't get paid, which doesn't happen because the way I set up my deals, it goes to my attorney. He sends a demand letter. I literally am the laziest investor you'll meet right now. So, but I set this up. Right. I said, this is what I wanted and I set it up. Like a lot of people want it, but they're not willing to do what it takes to get there.
Yeah. And a lot of people, so I probably much like you two guys, I get text messages and messages daily about, so I had a fireman text me this morning. He's like, hey, I saw your video last week about you're getting out of Airbnb, but it kept freezing whenever you got to the part about why. And his thing basically said like, hey, my wife and I, we want something passive, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, stop right there, because you're telling me you want passive. And we all know that short of what Dan's doing, there isn't any portion of real estate investing that's passive, especially Airbnb. So I basically explained that to him. And that's one of the questions I ask now when anybody wants to pick your brain about real estate is what is the goal? Because it's not a one size fits all. What Dan is doing, I know several guys that like, they just want to offset the need to work overtime, and they're extremely handy, and they could probably go flip 2 houses a year, do the work themselves. And probably like that's going to check their box for what they're looking to do. And I'm totally cool with that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. But my thing is kind of like, you said when you got in the police department.
I was going to say, sorry. I was going to say, if you tell me you want to do this because you want pure freedom, right? Then your actions, it's like a chiropractor, right? I have a lot of chiropractors who would lend me money and stuff like that. So your actions, like you're misaligned. You got to get realigned again, right? Your actions are not aligned. But you said, short-term rentals. I had 2 short-term rentals, and I was literally like this on my phone on the boat constantly, because you got to answer those messages, because you got to get those 5-star reviews, because if you don't, you're not a super host, you don't get those increased rents. And my wife was upset. I sold one of them, the first one. I said, listen, if we look at how much we're making on this thing, I'm working my butt off every weekend. I can't put my phone down. I got to be on it. I got to answer the same questions, because people don't read what they get, the messages they get about Wi-Fi and how to open the door and where this is and where that is. And I said, it's miserable. So I sold my Airbnbs to somebody as an investor, and I sold them on seller financing. It's the best of both worlds. I make almost as much money. I do absolutely nothing. I don't have to deal with the insurance, the HOA, the maintenance, the breakages, the cost. I do nothing. So I make a little bit less money. I have no responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's what I want.
So we've covered wholesaling, we've covered flipping, we've covered Airbnb in most of our previous shows. One thing we have not covered much of, a little bit, is kind of the owner finance, creative finance. But you mentioned something that I know we haven't touched on, and that is buying distressed debt. Now, that's probably what I would consider probably more of an advanced topic. However, could you kind of give us the buying it distressed debt 101? Like, what is that? If somebody's never heard that term before, can you explain that, what that looks like, how you buy it, and how you capitalize on it?
Sure. Distressed debt is if you have a mortgage on your house that you live in and you don't pay your mortgage. Banks have distressed mortgages. It's non-performing. It's called NPNs, non-performing notes. There's first and there's second mortgages. I started in the seconds, where you come behind the first. So the first comes first, then the second. Then I moved to the first. With the seconds, you're probably never going to get the house. With the first, you have an opportunity to get the house, right? So I went to the first because I actually want the house, right? So I only bid on a non-performing note that I want to own the house on. If I didn't want to own the house, I don't bid on that note. I'm not in this business to capitalize on those deals, right? So we get those reperforming. But in turn, my mission statement always said, give people a second chance at home ownership while making an income in doing so. I don't have a problem making money in doing so, but I gave the opportunity to reperform. So I would call up the borrower, and we'd ask the borrower, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay in this house or not? And a lot of times they do, and you could renegotiate their loan to keep them in there, and now you collect payments. But a lot of times I would buy them. I was one of the only note guys that would buy them vacant. Nobody wanted them vacant because they didn't know what to do with the properties. I'd buy them vacant because I want to get in there, take the property, fix it up, get it rented, get it sold, give them a clean note. So I took my 5 mortgage docs. But that's what distressed debt is. It's debt. Debt is distressed. It means you're non-performing note. So you're going to get those from your asset managers at your banks, and not your Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or Chase. You're going to deal with your community banks. Think about it. I'm an asset manager. I own hundreds of assets. So I would be an asset manager, so people can call me and ask, hey, am I selling any of my notes? I'm not now, but a tremendous amount of people like me are selling their notes because they want to recapitalize, right? One is I'm not selling because I'm not transactional. Now I sell off a second mortgage here and there, because when I do my deals, sometimes I do a first and second. I might sell off the second, keep the first. So I sell them off here and there. And it gets people, that 7 to 10% return on their money backed by a first mortgage. They have a second. Generally, the house is fully rehabbed, rented, managed, and there's equity and skin in the game from the borrower. So it's a very powerful note. So that's what the distressed debt space is. It's not. I always feel like it's not for the beginners. I know a lot of people teach it. I used to teach it in a 2-day workshop. I don't do it anymore because I feel like there's thousands of things that could happen in a note that you won't know about after a weekend workshop that I can't help you with. So I always tell people, you want to learn notes, use your money, buy a note, and then come to me, and you could pay me, per hour or per day to help you go through the note, because there's no way I could teach you the thousands of things that could come up in a note in a weekend workshop. I know there's people that do it. I'm not going to say they're good or bad, But I want to help you get through that note. And I don't like coaching people one-on-one anymore. I do more group type coaching. Because I just for whatever reason, it doesn't fit my mindset anymore, vision to sit there and waste my time for hours with one person at a time. I'd rather do it in a group setting. But that's what a non-performing note looks like. But you could take anything from, I buy distressed debt. So I buy non-performing first mortgages. I buy REOs, which is foreclosed properties the banks take back. I buy tax liens or deeds. I buy from wholesalers, right? I buy direct from sellers, just like anyone else would.
Are you buying nationwide?
No, I buy in certain markets. I try to stick in like 2 to 3 markets because I just can't. I have teams in each market, right? So I do a lot of stuff in like the Mid-Atlantic right now, like your Cleveland, Ohio, Akron, Ohio. I did a lot in Memphis, Tennessee, Birmingham, and Huntsville, Alabama, Charlotte, North Carolina, Delaware, where I live. That's really the markets that kind of stay focused. But there's a ton of great markets out there. You just have to go and do your research on the markets and find out what makes them a good emerging market. All right. And then stay in those markets. And it has to fit. Here's the other thing with seller finance notes. I don't know if you guys do this, but I only do seller finance notes to non-owner occupants, to people that are looking for rental properties. I do not deal with owner occupied properties at all anymore. You have to be non-owner occupied. It has to be a landlord.
And is that because you want to make sure it's a business purpose loan, and if you do need to do anything with the property, that it's a lot easier path than the owner occupied property, or is there like a different reason behind that?
No, it's good, really good question. One of the big things is yes. When you deal with a business purpose loan, you don't fall into residential banking laws. You're commercial, right? So now there's certain states that they don't care. Like there's certain places you got to do your own research on where you're in, but there's certain places I won't do. Even investment loans, like, Atlanta, Georgia, I won't do them there. I won't do them in Oklahoma, right? I won't do them there. There's certain places, certain parts of Illinois, I won't do them there. There's certain places that don't look at this any different. Okay, so the other reason is, so I don't have to follow Dodd-Frank or CFPB laws, right? That's a big thing. Even though I'm a licensed mortgage lender, I don't have to follow licensing laws, right, for that, it makes it a lot easier for me because I don't have, and the other thing is I don't have to underwrite the borrower. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs out there, if they're doing things the right way, they shouldn't be showing all their income on their taxes because they should have a net income from a good accountant. Following the tax laws properly, they should be able to write everything off. Well, that's the problem. I started this business off I started doing owner-occupied loans back in 2008-9 when banks stopped lending. I was doing owner-occupied loans, but then all of a sudden the banks came in and the government came in and said, well, now you have to underwrite these borrowers. Well, if they could be underwritten, they would have gotten a loan from a commercial bank. A residential bank. They can't be underwriting because your landscapers and your contractors and your realtors don't show their income on the books. So I said, the heck with that. And I converted. I made a switch. And I only deal with investors. And with investors, it's a lot better for us because they want to buy multiple properties. So my investors will buy sometimes from one property a year. Most they buy is about 20. I've bought 23 last year. So when you deal with one investor and they bought 23 properties, let's say I do about 200 properties a year now. I don't want to deal with 200 different borrowers, all right? I deal with less than 20 to do my deals, all right? So and I make sure it works for them. I help them create tremendous. I mean, I have medical professionals that are retiring on what I do, selling their practices and retiring on what I've helped them do. Great.
Yeah.
Real quick on that. Oh, sorry, Mike.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was listening to another one of your podcasts, and and this is for me and Mike too. It's these medical professionals that you're dealing with too. They're smart at what they do. They understand what they do. But what you mentioned and they're not in the real estate market actively. So if I'm going to lend Mike money or Mike's going to lend me money, we're going to say, hey, I want 10% of my money, 10, 11% of my money. I want to charge some points. Whereas most people like outside of that whole arena, they're going to say, if you tell them, hey, I'm going to give you 6, 7, 8% on your money, they're more than happy to do that. They're very excited because like you said, it's secured by an asset, it's secured by real estate, and they trust you as the one who's putting this all together. And it's going to allow you to arbitrage and have a spread on that when you're going to the end user. Can you touch on that too? Because I think a lot of people, like when we're going out to raise money, and if it's sophisticated lenders, they want 8, 9, 10% at least right now. Whereas the people that you're going after maybe don't want as much.
Exactly. Well, I if you heard me, I mean, you've heard me obviously on a podcast or a live event. When I speak at live events, I teach a lot of real estate investors. And when I'm teaching, a lot of them come up to me and they're like, how do we fund your deals? And I'm like, you're not going to fund my deal. I'm not bringing you in. But I'll tell you, after I show them how I do my deals, a lot of them are like, well, we have money. We want it very conservative. You can't guarantee anything. Here's the thing I always tell people, don't ever guarantee anything. There's no guarantees. I've never lost $1 for an investor in my life. I've raised over 30 million in new money, over 400 million in velocity. So it's saying something, right? But you never guarantee. But where I raise my money is not from real estate. So I'll be speaking at IRA companies. I don't raise money there ever. Because if you're an active investor, if you're doing the work yourself, you easily can make 10, 12, 15% on your money. But you got to do the work, right? You got to do all the work, find the deals, build the teams, deal with the headaches, lose money. You got to deal with it all. So I raise money from, like I always talk about like affinities of what you have. Like I'm into cars, right? I'm into bourbon. I'm into cigars. I'm into wine, right? So I'll do things like, when I go to Dallas, I do events at the Star. I'll do events at Ford's Garage. I go to like yacht clubs. I join country clubs. I go to wine bars. I raise money from places like if you're into artwork, go to art auctions and kind of hang out with the people there and just have a good elevator pitch and be able to explain what you do. And you're never selling. You just explain to people what you do. And I look at things a little different, but it's not me. You're not doing me a favor. I'm doing you the favor because I'm putting you in an opportunity that's phenomenal opportunity because I can't legally guarantee anything. But I've challenged people every time I speak across the world to tell me what the worst that could happen on my deals are. And nobody's been able to come up with anything because, they're always like, well, they don't pay you. And I'm like, well, that's the best that happens if they don't pay me because I just took their 30% down and took the property back and sold to somebody else for another 30% down. Do you think they're really not going to pay me for a $700 mortgage payment that somebody's not paying them? I said, they're not going to lose a couple months mortgage and lose that $30,000 plus their equity. So I set it up that way because I want to protect my private lenders. Now, I do have some people that come to me and they're like, well, this guy told me he can make me 10, 12%. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I'm not involved in those deals. I'm not going to take that kind of risk, even though everything's a risk. I'm just not going to take that kind of risk. I know come hell or high water, I know what I could pay back no matter what, because I'll be honest, if they don't pay me, I'm going to pay you. I'm not losing a deal over a payment I didn't make for you.
That's super important. You just said something a minute or so ago that was a big mindset hang up for me for a while was about, you just said your lenders, they're not doing you a favor, you're doing them a favor. And however you want to frame it is fine. But at the end of the day, it's easy when you run in the real estate investor space, if you will, to just 10%, 12%, it becomes a part of the landscape. But if you go find, like, I'm thinking about this one investor I have who I have no idea how much money, but a lot. Okay. And he sat there and stroked a check for $315,000 out of his checking account. And he was just ecstatic that he was going to have a place to put this money besides the checking account it was in. And we were going to pay him, in this case, 10%. So we were doing him a favor in essence, because he was thrilled. Like, he thought this was the best thing since sliced bread, and he's gone on to invest in several deals. And I was like, man, that's one of those things that's like, I thought I needed this guy, which I did, but he needed us almost more, just because it's easy. And obviously we're going to be biased. Like, hey, we're good stewards of capital, right? You can't guarantee anything. But if I can help get this guy a return on his money that's just sitting there, and I know that I'm going to do it in an ethical way and do everything in my power. And like you just said, if these people don't pay, honestly, I would be able to take it back and sell it and probably make more money. There'd be a real big pain in the butt factor involved, but I would be able to make him whole. No questions asked. Exactly. And it's like, if I can prevent him from getting in bed, so to speak, with one of these poor operators or, fly-by-night syndicators that he gets looped into, and next thing you know, they're doing a capital call and this guy's not getting a check and everything else. If I can help protect guys like that from people like that, I'm doing them a favor. And, to circle back to our community, like, I have a lot of buddies, like we talked about, you get text messages and conversations and whatnot, and they want to do something, but they don't know where to start. And I can say with pretty high confidence, like, hey, this is the opportunity I have. And we already have a level of rapport that they're going to trust me. And, it's just like, I can basically now with confidence take that guy's money and send him a check every month and know that we're doing everything to be good stewards of his capital. He's never going to be the guy buying the distressed debt or flipping or whatever the case may be. So it's like he wins, we win, whoever the end user is winning. So it's kind of like one of those, it's like everybody can kind of win along the lines of this game. It's just kind of reframing. You said it at the beginning, like, what is your goal? Mm-hmm. And if your goal is to just like maximize return, well, then there's probably better ways to do it. It's just going to be much, much riskier. And you're not going to sleep. And
well, think about it.
Go remortgage your house and put it all on Bitcoin and hope it goes up tomorrow. I guess.
I don't say I'm never going to be that billionaire because I don't have that kind of the guts to really do that. Throw it all on Bitcoin and nobody's money. But I always say it's got to be you just said it. It's got to be a win. It's a win-win situation. Not only do they win, but we win too. And I have people that come to me all the time and they ask me to borrow money, right? Because I'll lend money out to certain operators, right? But I want to have a relationship with them. I want to go deep. I don't want to go wide and lend to everybody. And a lot of times they come to me with a deal and it's just a one-sided win. It's the only one that wins is them. And your private lender doesn't win. I'm like, that's not good. You can't build a business that way, right? And if you're looking to beat me out of a couple points, well, then is your deal really that good? Or are you looking to build a relationship? So to me, it's always about a relationship. And now I don't care how much money I can make. If I don't think you're building a relationship with me, I'm never going to lend you money, right? I don't want to do one deal because nobody else did it. And we don't do anything more. And I don't want you to cut me out because you paid me 12% this month and next month somebody's going to give it to you 11, but you don't know them. That means then when you can't get your money, you're going to come back to me, right? So it's both sides. It has to be a win-win, right? And like you said, I know what people are making in the banks right now. I'm giving them better than average returns, but I'm also putting their money into deals. I probably don't even need their money because I could probably just use my own money for the deals some of those deals I'm doing, right? I'm not raising $10+ million anymore. We're generally raising from $3 to $5 million. That's really it. It's not that much to do. So I kind of pick and choose the investor, the lenders, private lenders I want to work with, because I want to work with the ones that I know I'm doing a good job for, that appreciate what I'm doing, that are, my thing is, if I don't want to have a beer with you or go to dinner with you, I don't want to work with you. That's really how it is.
Yeah.
Where at the beginning, it wasn't like that. I was almost begging people, like begging. I remember my first deal for $50,000. I was begging people and I couldn't get money. So,
well, you have to, it's a quote I've heard somewhere, like you have to say yes to everything until you can eventually say no. Like exactly. I had to say yes to all of that stuff to get to the point where it's like, nah, I don't want to deal with this guy, so I'm not going to borrow his money. But you can't necessarily do that at the beginning. So just realize where you're at in this journey before you take some of this and like, well, I don't like that guy. I'm not using his money. But
it is.
So, so Dan, I think you said, and I don't know if this was just an example or this is an actual type deal, like where you had a house, say you're able to sell it for 30% down, and you said $100,000, so they could buy 3 of them, 30 grand down, and then you're all out of the deal. So can you just walk through an example deal? And I know some of those markets you mentioned, like it's probably not uncommon to buy a house for 30 grand or 50 grand, but right. Like how does that look? Because I'm sitting there trying to do the math. Like you're rinsing your investor out, so there you were all in the deal for 30 grand, or was that just like a quick example?
No, it's
not an actual.
So let's say, for instance, I buy a deal from a bank, and I'm just going to throw numbers out there. $50,000, and I put $20,000 into it. I'm into it for $70,000, right? And I sell it for $100,000. I take 30% down. That's $30,000 back, right? So now if I borrowed $70,000 and I had $30,000 back, right? Now I only owe my private lender $40,000 balance, correct? So what I would do is split up a first and second mortgage, right? I do a $40,000 second and $30,000 first, sell the second, keep the first at closing. So I do whiteboard tradings on this stuff. I have 5 exit strategies. One of them is selling the whole mortgage, doing one mortgage for $70,000, selling it. My second strategy is split I don't have a whiteboard. Usually I'm at an event, you probably see me drawing my napkin presentations. They actually became pretty Pretty famous. They're on YouTube. The people frame them. But I'll sell the second, keep the first, and I stay in the second. And I want to keep this really generic because I'll blow, it'll really blow some people.
There's people driving right now. Their head is going to explode.
The third option is I will sell partials. It means I'll sell payments. All right. I'll sell some payments. I have 360 payments. I'll sell 40, 50, 60 payments. It's like an option. You sell for the money up front. And after those payments are paid back, you get all the money comes back to you. Then, the next option is called hypothecation. You could borrow against your note. Okay. You can go to people with IRAs, 401ks, Coverdell's, health savings accounts, life insurance policies, equity, cash. Say, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you have $40,000 in your IRA. You can lend me $40,000 against this note. I'll give you a collateral assignment. If I don't pay you back, you keep the collateral. So once you pay him back, you get the collateral back. Okay, so now you got your money back. You paid your private lender back, and you stay in the deal, right? The other $30,000 comes to you. You paid on the other $30,000. And the last option I now have approved is I get banks will give me leverage on my notes. I get 4 to 10 times leverage on my note. So if I have a $70,000 note, 4 times that is $280,000. 10 times that is $700,000. That's like a line of credit banks will give me at prime minus a half right now. So you have to work a relationship out with your local banker. They're going to look at your collateral. They're going to look at you. They're going to make you personally guarantee it. And you have a line of credit. So if you ever need to do deals, you have that. So I have 5 options I teach on once you have a note. Now that's the other benefit of owning the paper. Once you own the paper and you own the collateral, the way I do it, it's the most profitable collateral in the world. It's the most sought after collateral by banks. So people buy my notes, they pay me more than my note is worth. So if I have a $70,000 note, they'll give me $72,000, $73,000 because of the way I write. They want to collect those payments for the next 30 years. So they'll pay me more than my note is worth, which is called the unpaid balance.
And is that because it's performing and it's fixed, or it's got a prepayment, or
it's got everything? So it's the gold in the industry. They call it the 10-10-10. The 10-10-10 means you have at least 10% down, right? Your interest rate is 10%. So I'm 9.99 to 11.99%, and you have a 10-year balloon. People, those notes, and the reason I put a 10-year balloon on there is because I want my notes to be powerful. So if I ever want to sell them, they're very powerful. So then they're clean notes, right? So think about this. This property is fully rehabbed, right? Rented, professionally managed by a third-party licensed property manager. It's got equity, and the borrower put at least 30% down. Who wouldn't want to jump on that note? You want the borrower not to pay you. That's your biggest goal, is let them not pay me. I say that, but in turn, I don't ever want to foreclose on a borrower. But for an investor, I've never had an investor not pay me. Now, I've lent private money where they haven't paid me. I bought non-performing notes where they haven't paid me. But in this business, I've done these loans a couple thousand times. I've never not been paid. Never. Because why wouldn't they?
Absolutely. I was going to say too, why wouldn't they? And then do you lend a lot of that success to your due diligence as far as what you're doing, how you're going through it? Whereas a lot of people, I think they look into, second notes, stuff like that, anything that's non-performing, and they're like, oh, it's a great deal. It's 10% on the dollar, but they don't really look past that, and they just buy it and think it's magically going to give them a great return.
Oh yeah. It's a tremendous amount of due diligence. But remember, I only do a note on a property I want to own. That's the biggest thing. So I'll take a property. Let's say I didn't buy a note from a bank. I bought it direct from a seller. Seller called me up. They want to sell their property. I bought it direct from them. Or I bought it from a wholesaler. So I look at the property. I'm like, am I willing to keep this as a rental in my portfolio? I look at every deal like somebody's not going to pay me. And if I'm not willing to keep it, I do not do it. I don't care how much money I can make. Right? I buy in Class B to C areas. I look for a 1% rent to value ratio. I buy with good job growth, decent schools, low crime, taxes under 2%. Okay, good infrastructure in place, 10,000 people in the local area, less than 45 minutes away from 100,000 people, city metro area. So I want to make sure that people can afford to pay my rent, and that my investors that buy those properties make a cash on cash return of at least 7 to 9%. Generally, they'll make about 10, and the internal rate of return about 16%. So that's the areas I look to buy in, right? Quick to foreclose, quick to evict, right? So there's areas I won't touch because they don't fit that. If they don't fit the check boxes, I don't care how much I can make, I don't touch it. Because I look at it like this, I'm going to have to foreclose on you and evict. Every property I look like that. So I'm also providing them the property. They're not coming to me and say, hey, lend on my deal. I'm saying, this is a property I have in this market. Do you want it? And I don't buy properties anymore, go out and try to sell them. I have a waiting list right now of people that want to buy my properties. So as things come up, I look at what comes up. I'm like, this fits Jenny. This fits Sal. This fits Tom. This fits what he has. This is how much money he has to work with. This is the area he wants to be in. This fits his criteria. Now, a lot of times I have people on a list. I'm like, give me a little bit of time to find something that fits for you. Because I look at a lot of stuff every week. A lot of times I just say, no, no, no. And I could sell it. I easily could sell it. I was like, no, 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 yes. And I call them. I'm like, I got one for you. They go, okay. And then we go and we buy it. We get it rehabbed. They already bought it. I mean, a lot of times they're closed before we even finish the rehab for them. But we kind of go shopping for our investors. We don't do it the other way around anymore. Because I don't want to go out there. So I don't sell anything to anybody. If nobody wants to buy, I don't buy anything. I'm okay. And to be in the world of being okay is pretty cool because you're not jumping on deals that you don't want.
It's powerful. Yeah. I mean, your whole mindset changing is like in the joke in the sales industry is you don't have commission breath anymore. You're not trying to sell because you're desperate.
I know. We see that all the time, right? I know you guys see that. You know, as soon as somebody hits you up and they're like, hey, how you doing today? I want to just say, what are you selling me? What do you got?
So you said you're buying these from banks, wholesalers, direct to seller. Mm-hmm. Do you have an active outbound marketing campaign, or is your sphere of like influence just cultivated so much from speaking and being around for 20, 30 years that, you know, your funnel's kind of pretty much always full? And then second part to that is if somebody that didn't have your basically experience wanted to go talk to their local bank, who do you ask for? The asset manager, you know, hey, I'm buying houses. Like, how do you get in front of the right person to kind of get the opportunity to take a swing at one of those properties? Because I would imagine that there's people lined up to do just that.
That's good questions. One is I don't have an outbound marketing anymore. Now it's my sphere, right? So I stay in touch with them though. I actively pick up a phone every week and I speak to my asset managers just to talk, see what's going on. I go to events. I invite them to when I do an inner circle event or a workshop, I always invite one or two people from my team there, and it'll be an asset manager there. So you could talk to them. So I pick up a phone and call them. Yes, you're going to call your local banks. You're going to ask for the special asset managers, right? Your special asset managers are the ones that are dealing with the distressed debt, generally, or distressed assets. You could also go online and see which banks they are. It's public, right? But you're going to want to know exactly what you want, right? You don't want to just say, hey, I buy this, right? And you got to understand, you got to build a relationship with them. So the relationship might be, you know, we're all looking for home runs in the real estate world, right? Everybody looks for home runs, but you have to lead with value. They don't need you, just like we don't need some private lenders, right? What value can you bring me if I'm the asset manager, right? I have this junk on my desk. FDIC just came in and did an an audit on us. We got less than better credit ratings. We have potentially, like Silicon Valley Bank, we potentially could be shut down, right? So what can I take off of your desk as an asset manager? Not what could you do for me? Hey, I'm a real estate investor. I want your best deal for the least amount of money, right? That's what we hear out there, right? We want your best deal for the least amount of money. What can you do for me? What do you have on your desk that I can help you with right now? And then know exactly what you want to buy, and be ready to close. All right. The worst thing you could do is not close. The worst thing you could do is somebody present you with exactly what you told them you wanted and you don't close. Okay.
That's with any seller, not just a bank.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to close on deals that you lose a little bit of money on just to get the relationship with them, because they're not going to give you, listen, they have relationships with me, right? They're going to pick up the phone and call me with their best deals. You don't know them yet. You got to buy the stuff that I don't want to buy and get in their graces. Now you have to say, most here, like anything else, the money's made in the follow-up. Most people, and when I used to teach the note investing, I would tell people how to deal with asset managers, and most of them would call once and never get a call back and stop. Only, I can tell you one time I had a guy call a bank in Texas. On the first call, he got 12 assets, 12 on his first call. But, you know, most people will go out and talk about how great they are and, hey, come to my class and you make this call and here's this testimonial. It doesn't happen like that. You need to make those phone calls. You need to get in the right rooms. You need to see where the asset managers, look them up, see where they're going to be, what events they're going to be at. You need to go to those events. And they're not going to be free events, guys. They're just not going to be free events. You're going to have to pay. The events I speak at, to get in those doors, you have to pay generally $1,500 and up as a ticket. To buy a ticket, you have to pay about, you're not getting to these events for $97. You know, I call these the king of dipshit events, right? Everyone pounds their chest how great they are. They're all talking how great they are. They're all at the events. They do nothing. The best asset managers never show up to those events. You need to go to the high-level events, and you always need to go. I'm telling you this. Any event you go to, you want the best piece of advice I can give you, buy the VIP ticket. Buy the VIP ticket. Because the asset manager is not even going to talk to you until they're at the VIP dinner. I don't even talk to people, seriously, quickly. But if you want to talk to me real about business, get to that VIP dinner. Why? Because if you don't invest in yourself, you don't believe you're worth it. Why would I waste my time with you? I'm telling you now, I tell this to everybody, get to that VIP room every single time. If you can't afford it now, you'll never be able to afford it later. You have to do it today. Get in those VIP rooms, find where your asset managers are, and be intentional about speaking with them. And don't ask what they could do for you. Tell them what you could do for them. And all it is building a relationship. But know exactly what you want. Hey, I want these properties in this market. This is my buying criteria. So if you want to buy, vacant land, and tell them I want vacant land in this area. When they call you with that piece of vacant land, you better close. You better close. And learn.
So you walk in, say, I want to buy the biggest piece of crap. How do I take it off your desk for you? I'm here to help. Right. I
want to help you. But I want a relationship. How do I help you? What help do you need? And they might not need anything today, but the way the banks work, if you understand how banking works, we could do a whole class on how banking works. Banking works, there's different times of the year they have to get distressed collateral off their desks. It's not that they're losing money, but their opportunity costs are being taken away because they have to hold money in escrow for a non-performing asset. Also, if they're inspected, they can lose their charter if they get less than better credit ratings, 2 or 3 quarters in a row. So you got to understand that. So they might not need to sell anything today, but come October, they might need to get something off their desk. And you're the person who has a relationship with them.
So this is a little speculation, but do you foresee in the marketplace a lot of that potentially happening soon with some of these larger assets that were syndicated with maybe 5-year fixed or, the rate adjusts in 5 years, and we're coming up on close to that?
It's not speculation. It is. It's happening right now. I can give you banks that are go. I mean, I was just with them. I'm telling you, right? Just do research on a bank like New York Community Bank and see what you find.
And these are syndicators that basically they're pro forma in pencil. Yeah, and they were thinking they were going to refi out at 3%.
Yeah. They were going to value add and refi out. And I'm involved in two LP. I'm in the LP in 2 multifamily deals where I have capital calls on both of them, and I haven't seen a penny in almost 3 years. That's why I'm so negative with multifamily operators. Most of them don't know how to underwrite. Most of them are in the business less than 10 years. Most never seen capital calls before. And there's banks, just so you understand, that you could be making those payments and they can still go do a capital call. Right? So there's banks, like I said, I told you, like you had, Silicon Valley Bank, look at New York Community Bank right now, look at Zion Bank right now. There's banks right now that are facing some troubles. And these are public, so I don't mind saying it. But yeah, I speak to asset managers all the time, and we talk about this all the time, and they tell me that they've already more than doubled the distressed debt that's coming due. So if you're not ready, if you're not raising capital now, if you're not getting your game in motion right now and know exactly what you want and have a plan in place, and if you don't know what you're doing, get a mentor that knows what they're doing, bring somebody value, pay them, but find out who's doing what you want to do and start joining their groups and just get out there and make it happen. But don't go to events and just have no clue what you want or what you want to do, who you want to see. Be very intentional about what you want. Figure out what your vision is. And this is what I always help people. Like, figure out what your vision is and work, like I said before, work backwards. Why are you in this? Yeah. What is it you really want? If it's I just need a couple of dollars to build a pool, that's fine. If you want to stay at your 9-to-5 job, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you tell me you don't want to do that and your actions are totally different than your vision, well, then you're never going to align. You're never going to win at the game.
Yeah. And you said something a little bit ago about buy the VIP ticket. And that's something we've talked about, not necessarily the VIP ticket, but, there's 2 types of people. Whenever you tell somebody, hey, I paid $1,500 to go to this event, and you're going to get people be like, how much did you spend on that? And then you're going to get people that's all, like, man, you paid $1,500, but you learned how to make 1.5 with the knowledge that you've learned.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's kind of like just two schools of thought. It's all about the perspective, I think, and something in the world that we kind of come from. It's like, I think it's very uncommon for people to pay for education, especially the not $99 a weekend stuff. I'm talking like thousands of dollars, but it's you kind of get what you pay for, I think, in some regards.
People pay for college and what they get out of that. Now, am I going to say?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
College, she's a nursing student. I'm not going to say anything bad about that, but it's, Mike, it all comes down to mindset, right? It's living in scarcity. If you don't, here's the thing, like things like, and we get off the subject, but like, I believe always fly first class, stay in the Admiral's Lounge. Why? I'm worth it, right? My biggest investment is myself. So if I don't believe in myself and I'm not going to invest in myself, why should somebody else, right? So I don't ever look at, I don't ever look at any of this as a cost. What does it cost? It costs nothing. It's an investment, right? And if I'm not going to invest in myself, like, why would I trust you if you don't trust yourself to invest in yourself? So that's kind of how I've been. And my best deals, my best partnerships and deals at any event. Now, obviously I'm a speaker at most of the ones I attend, so I'm always at the VIP, but if I'm not, I always go VIP. I've always believed in that because I'm like, you know what? I don't want to hang out with the king of dipshits. I want to find out, success leaves clues. I want to be with the successful people. And you think they want to talk to me if I don't want to spend the extra $1,000 to be at the VIP dinner? There's no way. So even when I do my events, I do a VIP dinner. And what do? I donate every dollar. I don't care about the money. I want to donate it, but I want to be in the room with the people that believe in themselves. I just invited one guy. We're going on a cruise next year to a high-level entrepreneur event where people sold their companies for $7 to $10 million out in 7 to 10 figures, I should say, out in Puerto Rico. And I finally got into this cruise and I invited him. And one of his questions, he said, "Why'd you invite me? Why me?" And I said, "Because you were at my event. And you came to the inner circle, a VIP dinner, which we charged $1,000. The event was $5,000 for 2.5 days, and the dinner was $1,000. And we took every dollar, we donated it. And they all are there to see the donation at the wait staff, right? And we changed their lives every single time." And I said, "That's the reason why." And he's like, "I knew doing that was going to change my life." And it's changed his life. And every single person that goes to that VIP dinner of mine changes their life. But the people that don't go, not that they're bad people, but in my mind, it's like, why wouldn't you? So you don't live abundant. My number one core value is abundance, right? What can you do for others over yourself, right? If you're not abundant, I really don't want to do business with you. That's my number one. My family has 21 core values. That's our number one, is abundance, right? Anyone that knows me, follows me, will see that, right? I prove it over and over again, not to show off. It's I'm hoping it pierces somebody's heart that they do the same. Stop thinking about themselves, right? And when I do business with somebody, I always say it's like an interview process for me. When I do an event like my Inner Circle workshop or a training event, and I put out the VIP dinner, I kind of see who goes and who doesn't. And if you don't go, it's because you think of $1,000 as a cost, even though we're donating it. But if you don't believe in yourself for $1,000 to go to this dinner, to be around 10, 15 rock stars, then why would I believe in you? Because you're not investing in yourself. So it all comes down to living in scarcity. You think if you invest $1, you won't get 10 back, right? So once you change your mindset, everything changes. I mean, everything changes. I could tell you this. I could tell you it happened to me about 9 years ago. It's part of my story. I can tell you about how many people I've worked with that they've been honored and blessed to change their lives, because it's not once they can afford it. If you don't do it, you'll never be able to afford it, right? People are like, "You pay for first class." And if I could fly private all the time, I go. Like, that's my next thing, is I want to fly private. The reason I do like first, because I get to talk to people in first class, my best conversations. I can't tell you how much money I raised in first class. 100%. I can't tell you how many relationships I still talk to people in first class like that I've made. I got the credit card just to sit at the Admiral's Lounge, because instead of sitting in an airport with a bunch of everybody, I'll talk to anybody, right? But I want to go to the Admiral's Lounge, and those are the same people that invested $500 in that credit card a year to be in the Admiral's Lounge, right? So that's the kind of stuff you have to, like, I got rid of a couple of events I do. I joined 2 country clubs. So the amount of money I pay in country clubs is over 6 figures a year. But do you know the conversations and the people I meet there? So yeah, it's a cost, over $100,000 a year. It could be a cost, or give me investment. How much money do you think I made on that $100,000 a year?
Yeah, exactly. And totally agree with everything just comes down to perspective. And that can be said with a lot of things in life, not just investing. But yeah. I know we're coming up on time. I want to be respectful of that. Dan, certainly appreciate your time. If somebody wanted to learn more about you, where to follow you, we briefly glossed over a podcast and a book. Could you kind of just tell people what those are, where to find you, and if they'd like to connect, where the best place to do so is?
Sure. Definitely, you can jump on my free stuff on Facebook. It's Become a Real Estate Investor with Dan Zitofsky. That's the free group. Become a Real Estate Investor with Dan Zitofsky. Grab a copy of the book. It tells my whole story, Passive to Prosperous. Podcast is called the same thing. I haven't recorded anything in a while. We'll start recording there again soon, but there are some great episodes on there. And on YouTube, on the Zitofsky Capital Management, you'll see a lot of my training videos. We're starting to upload more in there, but I try to give as much free stuff. Obviously, I'm on Instagram on the Dan Zitofsky. Unfortunately, on Facebook, you could follow me, but I can't do friend requests because we keep hitting that 5,000. So if you have any questions, just post them in the group. Just so you know, I do not let anyone else answer my messages or questions. I answer them all. My social media is all me. I believe in that. I believe in being both vulnerable and being who I am. So who you see online is who you'll see in real life. And follow me because I speak at a lot of events. I generally will put them out. If the show hosts give me a discount code, I don't believe in discounts, but I put them out there for them. I have some free webinars I wind up doing. So stay tuned. You'll follow those. You'll see my webinars. I always give out plenty of free content out there. Obviously, I have paid trainings as well. But if you're somebody who just wants the free stuff, you'll get some stuff from my free stuff as well. And just once again, just go on your journey, figure out your vision, figure out your why, work backwards, and don't let getting beat up stop you. Just keep moving forward. So I appreciate you guys having me on, guys. Tyler, Mike, it's been an honor in this group and help the people out here. And if there's anything I could do, just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Mike, you got anything else?
No, just thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this has been awesome. We will post everything that you just mentioned into the show notes. And with that, we'll talk to everybody soon.
Awesome, guys. Take care. Have a good one.